That'll work for you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Hey, good morning, everyone. And for those of you that don't know Gongos, they're up there on the right, on the top. Gongos is actually a decision intelligence organization. So we work with clients to help them gather data. We work with clients to help them do data sciences and analytics on that data. And then we work with clients to help them curate their insights and help them to be more persistent throughout the enterprise so people can access their insights. And we were Supplier of the Year for Coca-Cola the year before last for their Knowledge and Insights group. Been around for about 20 years. My name's Jason Raguso. My last name, actually, if you spell it backwards, is O'Sugar. So, it's a true story. You know, for those of you that don't know me, I actually have the best job in the world. I get to work with clients and executives that have very challenging and very complex analytics problems, and I've been doing it for a long time. And I've had the privilege of working with Walmart, United Healthcare, SAP, helping SAP do their analytics, Starbucks, Intercontinental Hotels, Nestle, General Motors. And so over the course of the last 10 years and helping to grow Mu Sigma and helping to deliver all this work, I thought I'd compile some learnings and some of the what I think are unintended consequences of people going a little too fast when it comes to analytics and where people get snagged. Actually, go back one second here. So the title of this presentation is Architecting an Intelligent Organization. So what is intelligent, or how am I defining intelligent? You know, an intelligent organization, to me, is one that balances performance. Eric was talking about precision, you know, accuracy, speed, quickness, but then also the ability to innovate. And you know, big data, you know, the word big data means a lot of things to a lot of people. For me, I think it's a metaphor for disruption. I think data's always been big. But I think if you actually take the two words, big and data, I think they represent two sides of the coin. You know, the big part is the part that allows CEOs to come up with new business models, COOs to come up with new ways of driving efficiency in their business, CMOs, new ways of reaching their customers. And you know, that part of big data, you know, the big part I think is represented by Albert Einstein's quote. It's, you know, imagination is more important than knowledge. You know, that's where the innovation comes from. You know, the data part of it, to me, is you know, how you gather and store and access and assimilate that information in a quick and accurate manner. I think is more represented by, you know, the Wyatt Earp quote. You know, fast is fine, but accuracy is everything. And the reality is, for just about everybody in this room, to some degree, if you're involved in analytics in your enterprise, you're accountable to both performance and innovation. And so, you know, how does that feel? Well, unfortunately, you know, speed doesn't equal learning, and accuracy doesn't equal experimentation. And so the ability to deliver significant performance a lot of times actually is, you know, compromises your ability to innovate. And so, you know, this is, you know, I think a picture says 1,000 words. I'm also a big fan of Homer Simpson. So if you could cue up this video. Oh. Go. Go! 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 And so there's performance on the left, and there's innovation on the right. And you know, and we all have that look on our face that Homer has right there, hanging from the wrecking ball, as you know, as a new technology comes in. Because what happens? It can deliver both performance and innovation. And then suddenly it's it's incredibly hyped. And then Gartner gets to write a paper. And and so what I want to really cover today is I want to talk about the mindset that's required for successful analytics. I want to talk about the skill set, or at least my perspective on skill set. I think actually Parthiv and I have some very similar opinions on this. And then I want to talk a little bit about a level set. I want to talk a little bit about what this means for your individual companies or cultures. And so if you think about analytics, regardless of the actual industry you're in, the business that we're in as analytics executives is the business of connecting data to decisions, decisions to data. That is our business. How we do it. So we will take the outcomes, or we'll take the the exhaust, the digital exhaust from a business environment, create these data stores, and then we'll do analytics on the data. And then people will make decisions, and that influences the business environment. And this is how it goes, right? And then to kind of operationalize it, in the lower left corner you have your data infrastructure, and that's everything from your relational databases all the way to your Hadoop clusters and all points in between. And then you have your analytics, which is everything from your descriptive to your interpretive to your predictive to your prescriptive. Although I sometimes debate whether prescriptive actually is its own thing, or if it's just an attribute of descriptive, interpretive, and predictive. I mean, all analytics really should be prescriptive and say, so what and now what. And I guess while I'm opining, I'll also say that I think it's kind of a sad commentary that in the times we're living in today, we call it data-driven decision-making. You'd think we just call it decision-making. As we evolve, though, and analytics gets more mature, then there's the process of insight logistics. And what I mean by insight logistics, I think someone touched on this yesterday, although thankfully they didn't call it this, is getting the right information into the right executive's hand at the right time in the right way, so they can make the right decision. And it's the skills required to properly deliver analytics, in my opinion, are inherently cross-functional. The idea that your data architects can be in a silo and not really be in the same department as your statisticians, who aren't in the same department as your folks that are actually working with the business to help them drive business outcomes. I think that that's going to have to go away, because the speed at which we're moving almost incapacitates true specialization the way it was once upon a time. That the ability to be cross-functional, the ability to work across all of these different concepts, and for someone in a data environment to still be able to connect the dots with, okay, if I store it this way and I want to access it this way, what does that mean for the end user? There has to be that level of accountability to what they're doing. But what happens? We've got all this great technology. And I think that, and part of not a silver bullet, I could not agree more. What I do think is important is that people need to be able to play around with these things and figure out the context and how they relate to one another, and then figure out if it's meaningful. But whether it's Cassandra or whether it's Spark or what have you, I think that people oftentimes are like, oh gosh, we got to have this skill set in-house before they've even really validated whether or not it's truly meaningful for them and truly complementary. And so let's go into mindset for one more second. You've got this business environment, and you've got this data, and you got this analytics, you got decisions. To me, this is actually a performance mindset. When I think about big data and what big data is really all about, especially combined, I think that there's more to it. I think that if you're going to drive innovation, you have to think a little bit differently. You have to say, well, wait a minute, what decisions do I want to be making? And what analytics do I need to be doing? And what data do I need to have? And then can I reinvent the business environment? And it's our charter as analytics executives, and the ones that I work with, to make sure that they're capable of doing both for their enterprise. So how do they do that? Or what's the way that they do it? Well, I believe that it's unique to each culture, and there are different cultures. First of all, how do companies adopt? Well, some will build and some will buy, and I'm not here to pass judgment. I think that there's a case that both are good, but they also have every strength is a weakness. So if you build something, you obviously you own it, but it can be slow. But over time, you can achieve certain scale benefits. You buy it, you can have it very quickly, but sometimes there's a little bit of confusion because it came a little too fast. And then you have deployment. And so should I be centralized? Having all these data scientists in one room, there's a lot of benefit for that, for all the sharing. Or should I be decentralized? Should I be closer to my customer? I could be more responsive. And what happens is companies tend to wind up falling into buckets. And so centralized companies that build their own technologies or their own capabilities, they have great structure. They're slow. And for folks that want to be innovative, I hate to break it to you, but if you come from this quadrant, you are going to be challenged in driving innovation. You will be out of this world when it comes to driving performance. But, every strength is a weakness, right? And then you have the outsourcers. So, centralized, they tend to align around one or two technology companies. They've got IBM, they got Oracle, and then, fill in the blank for the third one. And, maybe TCS. And they wind up outsourcing a lot, and they go very fast in some regards. But there's also sometimes, it's a lot of expense, of course, and they're current. But, there can be challenging sometimes because they've outsourced a lot of capability there. And so when new technologies or new concepts come in, they have a hard time really knowing what that means. They have to just listen kind of to what their partners tell them. And there's some risk in that. And then you have the islanders. And I see this one probably the most in the companies that I work with, frankly. Well, probably the bottom two. But, the islanders are, so they're decentralized. And they tend to build a lot of their own capabilities. I see this a lot in CPG because multinational companies, they want to be close to their markets. And so what happens in these kind of cultures is very, very effective and, kind of very good at capturing what they need to capture within their markets. Not so good at communicating with each other. They don't collaborate as effectively as they could. And so, you tend to have communication gaps and opportunities lost in the way that they could be sharing better. And then you have the trailblazers. They're decentralized. They buy things. They move very quickly. And so you have, very fast, but chaotic. Chaotic. Maybe even I'd call it schizophrenic. But they're actually very, they're very passionate about customer service. And these are usually more your startups. Like I did a lot of work with Airbnb. They were like this, and so their challenge is how do I deliver consistently so I'm not just reinventing processes all the time. And so the reality is, as you guys leave here today and you take all this knowledge and you go back and you lead your organizations, you're going to have to build these capabilities inside the culture that is going to be hosting these analytics. So I just wanted to give you guys a few case examples and takeaways from experience, and also some reading assignments potentially. So how do I drive service? And to me, like the controllers, like I said, I find that they have some innovation challenges. There's a book called The Innovator's Dilemma. It's a good one. I think it's related to these cultures in particular. They're very good at doing what they do, and then that's kind of the optic through which they look at everything. I think that the best advice that I could give for companies that come from this group is to rethink your sandboxes. A lot of times, they'll create a dev environment, and then they'll invite some power users, and they're like, okay, well, we can play around, check, and we got some people from the business, the power users. But more often than not, the power users in these kind of cultures aren't actually that close to the business, because they're such power users. And so I think you got to try to invite people into the sandbox that are also like almost naive about what the technology is or what the tools are, and just hear what they're trying to do. A good book to read is Where Good Ideas Come From by Steve Johnson. It's a very powerful book about how one of the examples is, Newton was thinking about gravity for a hell of a long time before the apple hit him in the head. It was just that moment that suddenly it crystallized. And so there's a lot of good ideas about how you can work within your enterprise to learn and learn in a more holistic way. The outsourcers, how do I instill ownership? So the companies in this group tend to throw money at problems, but they won't throw executive time. And so there's a lot of leadership issues there as far as commitment. And so my advice to the folks in this group is make sure that you build an internal competency as well. Like you have to, having worked with these companies, I can tell you that there's a little bit of a confusion about, well, what am I paying you for? Why do I need to have, analytics expertise in-house if I'm bringing you on? And my answer is that if you don't have some analytics expertise and some fluency in-house, like solid, then your leadership will never really be able to understand what we're doing for you. Because, we're delivering it through you as my sponsor, and if you're not capable of doing a lot of this stuff yourself or being out walking the halls and socializing it the right way and people understand what you're talking about, it won't be sticky the way you want it to be. A great book is Vested Outsourcing. Very good book on how to get more out of your outsourcing partnerships. And then there's the islanders. So like I said, I see this a lot in multinational companies, CPGs. How do I promote collaboration? And I'm not just talking about even just like in marketing analytics across all the different continents, for example. I even mean like, parts of you use the word federated. So I actually like that word quite a bit. I like to call it the Jedi Council. But the idea is, how do I get people that are responsible for analytics, period? Whether they're in the supply chain or whether they're in finance or whether they're in marketing, or whether they're in digital. Can I get them all together so they can start sharing? Because at the end of the day, regression techniques can be used across the enterprise in different capacities. And so hearing the different use cases will spur ideas. It will also facilitate a lot of sharing. And you can start to do some really great stuff. I've seen it time and time again. And the only other trick to this, if you're going to make it work, is you have to have somebody that isn't the CIO, although it probably could be, but somebody at a very senior level that oversees this Jedi Council. So when they get together and they knowledge share, when there is a really good idea, that individual then can go to the C-level, talk about what we're doing, and analytics starts to become a true function. Again, borrowing from Partiv, but I think that's when that starts to happen. Great book to read is Group Alchemy. It's all about how you can take folks that have separate agendas, if you will, and get them working together so they're more distinctively collaborating and winning for the group. And then the trailblazers. So personally, the way I think in my life, I'm probably a little like this. And so, the challenge here is how do I ensure scalability? And, how do you channel that schizophrenia a little bit? Because I do think that there's a distinct advantage to moving fast, and these people do tend to move very fast. But being an employee in this environment can be very challenging. It can feel very schizophrenic because, the priorities of the day can change, from morning to after lunch. And that can be very challenging and confusing, frankly. And so a good book to read is one called Traction. The bias of the author is a little bit more to eradicate schizophrenia. I don't know that you have to totally eradicate it, but I do think it needs to be channeled. And because these, kind of taking a step back, these groups right here, where's the pointer right there? This one right here, real good at performance, not so good at innovation. Guess what? These guys, not good at performance. great at innovation. So, it's, I'm not passing judgment, by the way. I want to make very clear that all of these have distinctive strengths and weaknesses. So I just want to make sure that I'm not it doesn't appear that I'm being dismissive of any of these cultures. So I'll leave you with a quote from a data scientist far before his time. We cannot solve problems by using the same kind of thinking we used when we created them. So as you go back to your day jobs and you think about how I can drive the effectiveness of my analytics organization, be mindful that you're accountable to both the performance and the innovation. And that's all I have. So, questions? Oh, there we go.
So, I like the term you're creative, and I'm curious how you deal with a situation where one large group in the company, let's say, is controllers, and the other are islanders. How do you bring those two together?
So let me just restate the question. So you're talking about in a very large company where you'll have a group that behaves like controllers and a different group that's behaving like islanders. So I think in both of those cases, a lot of times the org structure facilitates that, and what you're trying to do is oftentimes, especially when it comes to big data, is to drive more innovation. And so what I found, so I'm working with a mortgage company, and what we've done is we've actually taken and broken off some of the high performing, more fixed parts of their business, and there's a group of data scientists that are in that group, and all they're doing is taking the same 8 to 12 models that they've built that run their business, and they're constantly trying to drive performance and accuracy on that. And then there's a different group that's not quite as statistician-y, if you will, a little bit more business user oriented, and they're accountable. They roll up to the same person, but they have different metrics by which they're judged. And by creating that differentiation, I found that you can kind of tear down the walls a little bit, because the business users, they're always talking about like what's possible, and that gets people excited about that. And then once they've galvanized around what they want to be doing, they can then try to operationalize it. That's what I found the best. The biggest challenge I find for analytics executives, frankly, is that they don't have enough time walking the halls. They spend more time with their sleeves rolled up, hacking out SAS code or trying to figure out why 2 reports aren't tying out, as opposed to like literally talking to business users about what's working and what's not working, and I delivered this model for you, how come you're not using it? And well, I don't really believe it. Okay, well the math is right. Well, I don't trust your assumption. So you haven't really you need more time for that. Yeah, well, or some senior leader, someone at the C-suite. I think so to the degree that companies have, I think there's a lot of people that kind of are filling the role of a CDO or a CAO these days, as opposed to people that actually have the title of Chief Analytics Officer and then sit at the same level as the CMO and the Chief People Officer, what have you. Regardless, I think the point that I was trying to make is that it needs to be someone that has the ears of all of those operational heads, all of those C-suite leaders. So when a good idea happens, it doesn't happen in a vacuum. It's able to be communicated across the organization and socialized so people can get more excited about the possibility of what analytics enables. Does that make sense? Yeah. Anyway, any other questions? Thank you guys very much.